Hey everybody, hey, it's Lee Galbo with Junk Removal Authority. Well, we help junk removal business owners make more money and live a better life. You can check us out over at junkra.com to figure out how our digital marketing solutions and consulting services can help you start, run, and grow a junk removal company. One thing to keep in mind, some of the upgrades we've made here recently. Now, if you are an established business and you are looking to kind of go to that next level, if you're in a marketplace that can support a $1 million, multi-million-dollar a year business, we've now got branding packages and we've got really great custom websites that we can roll out for your company to help you build an amazing brand, and we can help you with those systems and kind of refine a few things to really help you accelerate. So, hey, this isn't a hugely well thought out video. Also, my video team's gonna kill me because of the lighting here. But right now we're in our hangar, or in my hangar in North Carolina, of which I've got another plane that's actually up the runway. So I live, well, I own this piece of land. I used to live here. We're about to tear down the house that's on it and build a new home. In the next, we said, hey, we're gonna start by September. So we've moved out and we're living right down the road. We're getting everything ready to get started. This house we've got right down the driveway here is going to get torn down, and we're going to be building our dream home that we've been planning for like 8 or 9 years. And we've been seriously planning in terms of doing plans and everything like that for like the last 3 years. So wife's extremely excited to be doing that. But this particular video, again, isn't extremely well thought out, but one of the things that I'm working on right now, so I got back into racing last year. Now, the racing I did years and years ago was pretty limited. I did a handful, but then I ran out of money. That's when we started Junk Doctors. The only thing I had left was a pickup truck, so started Junk Doctors. Began hauling junk. Got to the point where, all right, now I had money, got my businesses going where I've got enough flexibility now to do something like this. And the nice thing is we've got a great car. So I'm in a class. It's about the second highest class at the particular track that we race at. Now it's a V8 motor. It puts out about 500 horsepower. So a decent amount of power, weighs about 3,100 pounds. It's a heck of a lot of fun. We normally have about 13, 14, 15 cars in the particular class that I race at. Last year was the first year. Finished towards the back of the field, all but until the last race of the year. Last race of the year, wound up qualifying second, finished third. We probably would have finished second, except we had these cars, they don't weigh a whole lot. So you actually have weight that you secure on them. We had a weight box that a weld broke on, and it was essentially dragging the track. There's this big field of sparks just flying out as we went around. So the car got to where it didn't turn quite as well. Somebody got by me and we wound up finishing third. But last year when I first got into it, I didn't do a whole lot on this car. I had a gentleman that actually works for me. He moves trucks around on specialty truck bodies over at junkremovaltrucksforsale.com. And he used to race years and years ago. He's been a track champion probably 3 or 4 times. It's been probably 10 years since he raced. So some things have changed since then. He kind of had to get back up to speed on things, but we've known each other for a long time. He's been a friend. He's kind of one of those deals where he came to work for me, but I certainly don't think of myself as his boss. He's a friend. And we just happen to pay him for the work that he does and the contributions that we do. And I paid him to maintain this car. I still pay him to work on this car and all like that. And last year went pretty well. But what I found is in order for me to make wise decisions on growing this race team, and I've got aspirations of doing higher level racing. At one point, I used to always say I wanted to do like some truck series races, which you can do a rental program. You can rent a car and race in the truck series for, I'm trying to remember exactly. It's somewhere around $75,000 for decent, okay equipment, $100,000 for one race for great equipment. Now I'm not ready to drop $100,000 on to do one race for a truck series race. And I don't know as if I will now. So some of those aspirations, I don't know, have just kind of changed. There's another circuit called the Cars Tour that is mainly short tracks on the East Coast. It's still like super, super competitive. Recently, if you guys have ever heard of Dale Earnhardt Jr., he bought that. I anticipate them getting a TV deal is my guess. So they probably will get a TV deal. My guess is by next year. Now, I don't have any insider information. That's just my guess. When you involve him, it comes with a lot of exposure, and that's what I'm thinking that's going to occur. My thought process is they have no desire to really compete with NASCAR. I think they look at it as a feeder league for NASCAR, the top series in NASCAR, but also just something that's super competitive, grassroots racing that guys can go kind of have fun with. It's much more affordable, and again, it's super, super, super competitive. It's still expensive, but it's super, super, super competitive. And they race every other weekend, so which is nice. You can run a full year, and maybe 20 races. So they start in March and would end October, somewhere in that range. So even though it's a very, there's a lot of races and it's a lot of time commitment and all like that, it's still doable. And then with my other plane that I've got up the runway and whatever else we eventually get, when I get to that touring series level, then I'll be able to, I can fly to some of these races and all like that and kind of knock down on some of the travel time to make sure that I'm home with Jet and my wife and our growing family. So as we went through last year, one of the things I realized is, hey, I really want to be more knowledgeable about the car. I want to be more knowledgeable about what I needed more knowledge to determine, hey, how are we going to build a race team? One of the things that a lot of people said is, hey, you should just go rent a car. And that's just not me. And that's probably the wise thing. You can go rent a car, this particular class or whatever. If I wanted to run a car in this class that I'm running in, that's great equipment, this right here, with the stuff we've done this off season, for this class is great equipment. Now, if you were to go to the next level up, which is late model stock, this is considered like a limited late model or Charger. If you went to that next model up, this car is a little outdated. It's got really nice stuff on it, but there's some stuff in the geometry and how they build cars. This would be an okay car in late model stock, but it's not going to be your best. But this particular car in the class that I'm at, I could probably, for $3,000, I could pay somebody to have the car set up, good setup under it, and all I have to do is show with the helmet, hop in and drive. And that's probably the smart thing. It's the least amount of time. You get people that you hire somebody that knows exactly what they're doing. It might be $4,000, by the way. You hire somebody that knows exactly what they're doing. They crew chief you. They've got a crew. All you do is show up and drive. When the day's over, you're done. You leave. Now, if you crash the car, you still got to pay to fix it. So $4,000 is the starting point. If you damage anything, you still have to pay to repair it. But that's not me. And probably financially in certain aspects, and speed-wise, like I feel like though I've done things relatively quickly, I've done things a lot larger than 99% of the population or 98% of the population or whatever like that. But there's a lot of people that have done stuff a little bit quicker. It's because I've got just a desire and a belief that if you get in and you learn the smaller things or the inner workings or whatever of something, that long term it's going to pay off. I think your employees tend to respect you a little bit more. You tend to understand their capacity. You get a better picture of everything that's going on, but I think it can be slower. So me certainly showing up, paying somebody $4,000 to run some races in a great equipment, and somebody that's been involved in racing for the last handful of years, knows what they're doing, my results probably would have been a little bit better right out of the gate. However, now, especially this off season, I've really gotten involved, and it's about 10 o'clock at night. So what I've generally been doing is right after work, I'll get off at work about 5:30. I'll come out here, work for about an hour, and head home. Our nanny gets off at 7 o'clock. My wife, for those of you who don't know, is a volleyball coach, and she owns a gym, volleyball gym. We've got basketball courts and volleyball courts and baseball cages and workout equipment and all that kind of stuff. But she does lessons and runs that gym on most days, and she gets off normally about 7. So I get home and relieve the nanny at 7. She gets home sometime a little after that. So I work on about an hour right after work. And then I hang with Jet, and we get dinner and talk with her and do the kind of family stuff and all like that. She normally goes to bed sometime around 9:30, 10 o'clock. I slip back out here from about 10 to 1 or 2 here recently. I'm just going through the car. And my dad, he just bought the house next door to me. He'll come over and help a little bit. And Donald, the guy that has been setting up on this car, he'll come and help some. But what I found is right now I'm wanting to do most everything on my own and just kind of use them for advice. So just now we changed the hubs on this car over the off season. We went with a lighter weight hub. We also went with the hub that was on here. Actually, I take that back. It's about the same weight as the hub that was on here. It might actually be a tick heavier, but the hub that was on here, they don't make anymore. It was a magnesium hub, and the hubs were breaking. And I actually had a hub break in a practice session at Southern National Speedway at Kenley in November. Luckily, it broke at a great point. It broke right at about the center of the corner when I was already slowed up, not in the gas and all like that. And Southern National's a really wide track with big banking. So when it broke, it took off to the wall on the outside, but Southern National has so much banking and such a wide corner, I was able to get on the brake and get it wound up because I pretty much, I had very limited steering at that point. That hub was just flopping all over the place. So when I figured that out and did some research and learned about it and all, we determined that this particular type of hub is what we need to switch over to just from a durability standpoint. And that's just an example of a detail that I've personally got involved in learning. As we've gone through this, I've realized, hey, we probably had a brake caliper, a road that was dragging a little bit, and that can be a brake line. So we replaced the brake lines as well as the calipers on the front to keep it from dragging, which slows you up. Did some research on bearings. I found great information on some wheel bearings that have a lot less friction, and we bought those. They are ridiculously expensive, but we bought those bearings, and that's less overall resistance, less friction. You've got a limited amount of power on these cars, so the less resistance, less friction you can have, the better that it's going to run. And then we go into like small details. We're thinking about weight on just about everything. So, the power steering pump was leaking on it. Well, I found a power steering pump that weighs a lot less. Now the car, you want to have to add weight to it, but if you can add weight at the best spots, then you're going to have the best chance for success. So you want weight generally low, and you want it on the left side of the car up to a point, because this is round track, it's oval track racing, so the more weight you have on the left, the better the car turns. Meanwhile, I bought a pit box and was lucky enough to get hooked up with an individual that knows a lot about racing, who also informed me of a bunch of information just because I would ask a bunch of questions. And he's going to work together with us a little bit, and he got me on, I don't want to say exactly what, because there are going to be some people from racing that probably start watching some of this stuff from time to time, but he got me on some things that not very many people are running, but it'll actually give you just a little bit more power and help you handle just a little bit more. So, and falls within the rule book. So just by me getting involved in those details and me really caring about my results and the aspirations and the dreams and all that I have, and looking at those areas, I've discovered many things that probably we would not have discovered going the way that I was going about it before. Now, maybe some of the rental car places out there have it, but I have a very strong suspicion, just based on my track record in business, that if I get involved enough of this and I get enough information, at some point along the lines, I'm going to start hitting on things that other people aren't, because I just have a way of looking at things, and I'm going to find things that give us just a little bit of an upper edge. Now, me as the driver, I got some stuff to do on working on the driving end of things too, but I'm confident in that. I'm not afraid of the car. I understand the dynamics behind it. I've got a pretty good feel. A lot of that's from flying aerobatics and like that. So with a little bit of experience and all like that, I feel like the driving side of things, I'll be pretty good. And it's just a matter of getting the car right for us to really, really win some races, win some championships, and achieve some of my goals and aspirations. So some of the stuff we're doing on this thing is almost like considered splitting hairs. So for example, the bolts that are on this car, I was looking at some of these bolts and they had way more threads sticking out than they needed. So I replaced the bolts, and you're talking a couple pounds difference, maybe at most. So a lot of these bolts, like on these car, I went through and I got it to where you just have a couple threads or whatever sticking out at the very end to save on weight. The hubs I mentioned, some of the stuff, the power upgrades that I mentioned it's minuscule, but it adds up. And my dad was like, man, you're really splitting hairs here. You're spending a lot of money, a lot of time splitting hairs. And one of the things I told Dad, and I came up with it, I'm sure somebody said something before, I was like, you know what? splitting hairs, the thing with splitting hairs, once you split that first hair, you better keep right on splitting, because one split hair is not going to make a difference. But if you can find 10 split hairs or 15 or 20 split hairs, now you've made a difference. And in terms of racing, that might be 1/10 of a second, 100th of a second, and the difference between first and 10th might be 1/10 of a second on qualifying. If you can qualify up front, a lot of times you can finish up front and you don't have to pass people. It's a lot easier, it's a lot harder to pass people than it is to hold your position. So in business, it's much the same way. And you look at your entire company and you figure out what's most critical, and you work on that and you fix that first. Now, right now, we're doing a lot of this over the off season, so I'm able to fix a bunch. In business, you don't have that luxury. In business, you're operating all the time. So you have to continue running your business while you fix things and improve things and expand. Pick the most critical part of it. Now, you always need sales. You always need marketing. You always need sales, and marketing leads to sales. But your operations have to be of such that you execute on the sales that you have. Otherwise, every sale that you get could actually wind up harming you if you get bad reviews and if people aren't reusing you and referring you to others and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing is you make sure your product is good. Then you get the sales and the leads, and then you work on every other area of your business, constantly making tweaks so you can make a difference. And eventually, hopefully, after a 5-year or 10-year ordeal, and the reason I mentioned 5 or 10 years is I'm tired of people looking at stuff as short term. Quit chasing opportunities, guys. Like, just pick a business and stick with it. There's really no good businesses and there's no bad businesses out there. There's just good business owners and bad business owners, and just pick a business and stick with it. If you pick a business and stick with it and you work that business for 10 years, dedicated for 10 years, with as fewer distractions as possible, and you constantly work on splitting hairs, you're going to have an amazing business that's probably making you more money than you ever dreamed of making. And it's giving you a level of freedom and flexibility that you never dreamed of happening. So what I do when I split hairs in this race car is trying to find just a little bit of speed. I mean, a small amount. But that little bit of speed is the difference between finishing second or 10th or just losing and winning. In your business, splitting hairs and working on things and constantly improving things is the difference between winning and losing. That being said, you are not going to split every single hair on this car and figure everything out overnight. You got to show up at the racetrack, you got to show up and you got to practice and you got to learn things. So you get the car where you think it's good enough. You think it's, all right, this is good. I've put effort into it. There are things I'm going to look at, and I know they aren't going to be exactly right. Like, for example, here's a few things. But, like, I'm not really not going to be able to show you this, but this roof, you probably can't, there's no way you're going to tell in this video. There's a well that's broken up here that actually holds this roof on. I'm not planning on changing the body out on this car this year. We'll do it next off season because I'm going to get one more year out of this car before I get a new car. We'll fix it then when we take the body off, because this right here is not gonna hurt us on speed, and just other things to work on right now. And maybe I'll get a wild hair at some point if things go well and we don't damage the car and it runs well and like that. We'll go ahead and get it fixed. But there's certain odds and ends that maybe you won't do immediately because there's more pressing matters for you to work on. So you want to be prepared, you want to learn, but at some point you got to start the race. And there's a lot of you out there that are just gathering information. At some point, you got to start. So now that you gather information, you start and you got to execute on it. I just put out a recent video in Murray Shelton with Funky's Junk Removal. Murray, you got to check out his website. I think it's funky'sjunkremoval.com. Anyway, he's out of Atlanta. Has crazy, crazy looking trucks. Murray's like a big hippie. But he is a smart individual, and he had a comment on one of my recent videos. It was about how there's a bunch of bullshit getting thrown out on the junk removal business, making it out to be a lot better than it really is. It's a great business to get in, but it's not a better business than any other business out there. Not anymore. At some point, every business was probably a better business because it was new and it was slightly, it wasn't all that competitive and it had higher margins. Sam Schick, the $10 million man, works for us. He's famous for saying there's only one way if you're in a business that has really high margins, there's only one way it's going to go down. So, but it comes down to a certain level. Like right now, junk removal, again, it's a great business to get into. I tend to think any business out there that's revolutionary or niche with extremely high profit margins, at some point they're going to go back down. So you might as well start something and stick with it. Start something now and stick with it. 2-3 years down the line, it ain't gonna matter. It's not gonna matter anyway. You can build up a really good long-term business, and that's what you need to do. So one of the first things you got to do is go ahead and get started. One of the things Maury talked about is you got tons of opportunity right in front of you. That video, by the way, I was talking about, I think it's titled "The Junk Removal Business is a Great Business, but it's not as easy as some make it out to be." So you can check that video out as well. But Maury had an awesome comment. Make sure you read his comment. By the way, guys, if y'all do me a favor, comment on some of these videos. We get a good amount of views. We get some likes. Please please comment. It helps us out. I'm taking the time to kind of give this information out as best I can. If you'll just do me a favor and just respond via comment, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll give you a thumbs up for doing so. So, kind of where I'm at. So I need to get to work on this thing. I guess my main deal is learn the parts of your business. Try and understand all of them. I'm never going to be a NASCAR Cup level engineer knowledge at all, but I can know what they're talking about and I can have a good understanding of it. And I can have understanding of the marketing side of racing, which we're going to get into, and the track operation side of racing, which we're going to get into, and the way the racing business works and the way aerodynamics work and engine components and suspension components. Like I can have a really, really good understanding, and that's good enough for me. That my staff knows that I know what I'm talking about. They understand it. That's what's important. It helps me to be able to hire the right people, because how do you interview somebody when you don't know what they do? It's a lot harder to do that. So understand the foundation, split hairs, work on improving your company every single day, stay with it long term. I do not expect, maybe I'll win the championship this year in this division, but if I do, it's a second tier division at a track. It is an amazing track, and its heyday was one of the best out there, but it's not the most competitive in the world right now. So even if I win the championship, I got a long way to go. It's going to take several years to get to that Cars Tour and to be doing well in that Cars Tour. And I'm willing to do that because this has been a vision and something I wanted to do for a long period of time. Whether I do it this year or next year, it really don't matter. People get too damn caught up. Like you got to be, and I was the same way in my 20s. It was like now. Just work on it. Every day, show up to work and work. You're going to get knocked on your ass every once in a while. You're going to have something that happens. Work through it. Do not let it stress you out, because you're in it for the long haul. If you're not in it for the long haul, then don't be in business. Do not be in business if you're not in for the long haul. You need to be in for the long haul. So anyway, guys, Lee Goblin Junk Removal Authority, where we help junk removal business owners make more money and live a better life. Check us out over at junkra.com. We are the premier digital marketing agency for the junk removal space. We got some pretty smart people, myself and Christian and Sam, and all on the consulting side of things. Hope to work with you. If we can help, give us a call and check us out online. Appreciate you watching. Oh, by the way, comment please, and give me a thumbs up. Thanks, guys.